Okay.
Okay, well, hello everybody. This is the Self-Worth Talks. I'm Suzanne McCall, and I do these talks every couple weeks, and I try to find somebody who really embodies what I think, what my values are of self-worth and living like a really aligned and authentic life where you feel good about who you are and how you spend your time. And so I've just chosen and invited Sharon Clayman here today. Thank you, Sharon, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Sharon is a fellow psychotherapist, and we both do practice what is called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy. Sharon does more intensives, which I can ask you more about to say more about that. And I do more, more traditional, but packages. But anyway, the reason why I wanted you to come on here today, Sharon, is because a lot of the people I talk to are professionals, and it doesn't really matter if you're professionals or not. We all have to go to work, and we all have a lot of stress, whether it's, stress that we take with us from home to work or just on the job stress. And I know that you are a specialist when it comes to grounding, which I, from what I know of it, it's something that can help us to manage that stress when we are doing whatever we're doing. Is that true? Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really inviting this mindset within ourselves of where we at stress-wise, how regulated are we in the moment? And just if we can carry that awareness with ourselves, we can access being able to do something about it when we're not in a place where we want to be.
Right.
Whether it's at work or in a therapy session or at a friend's for a party.
Right. Yeah. And all of those things are stressful. I know that we as therapists learn a lot about grounding to help our clients. But our clients are just people, and they go wherever we go. That's what we need is all these techniques and these tools to really be able to feel like we have mastery over our life, which is just so important.
Right.
So before you tell us more about the grounding techniques and like, whatever you do with people with that, can you just share a little bit about, how you got to this place in your life where you are a therapist with your own business doing the kind of work you do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a journey. I was one of those college graduates with a liberal arts degree that had very little idea what I wanted to do. And I had a lot of inner turmoil and crisis at that time of graduation because I really didn't know how to segue into the kind of the workforce. So I went to grad. I got a few years of experience. I always loved languages and travel, and I was an au pair in Spain for a year, and I went to China to teach English for a summer, and then I was really all over the map, but knew that I really loved school. I loved learning, and I had done my undergraduate work in psychology. So I went back to grad school and got my doctorate in psychology and got my PsyD, which was a wonderful introduction to all the different aspects of the field. So I got experience with all populations, all settings, assessments, psychotherapy, kids, adults, so I really went into the field with just this general love of therapy, but admittedly for years was just like liking what I did. And it wasn't until I found EMDR that I really fell in love with doing this kind of work, because I felt like for the first time, I was able to really get to the core of what people were bringing into me. And I felt like I could be effective as a therapist in helping people make some extraordinary life changes. Whereas beforehand, I was really working with symptoms helping people in the moment feel better, but not really doing the deep, lasting, like effective kind of change that EMDR and somatic techniques and ego state work can bring. So, yeah, I really just, it was about 8 years ago that I found this work.
It's interesting how long it takes us sometimes to figure out like what we want, like who we are, what do we want to be when we grow up?
I don't think we ever answer that question. I'm still learning that.
Yeah. I am too.
Yeah, personally, professionally, like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't know this about myself. It just, learning sometimes happens overnight, and sometimes it takes lots of small increments. So one grain of sand at a time, and then you get that sort of tipping point sometimes, like Malcolm Gladwell, that tipping point. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sense. Like this really hits on a core level.
Right.
So,
that's interesting because, you know, a lot of people that I work with, we talk about imposter syndrome, and the whole idea of what you were just saying about the tipping point, like it takes us a long time to feel really comfortable and confident in what we do.
Yeah.
And each time we change, we step into the next and something new, kind of. It's like a new who we are, and we have to get comfortable with it again.
And I would even add to that. I think that for many years, still to some degree, I was very much a perfectionistic thinking. And what's really helped me with that and that imposter-like syndrome is just really stepping into, like, it's okay not to know.
Yeah.
It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be the expert. And just like just offering myself so much permission to just be in a learning phase, because there's always something that I'm not going to know about.
Right. And that's reality.
Oh, yeah.
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 So I feel like I have the basic protocol down at this point. Not for years, right? I was like checking my notes, how to, referring, felt like I had to get it just right. And now it's just higher level stuff that I'm trying to integrate.
Yeah. 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 That's how life is. And I mean, I was just reading something that was talking about the state of the world right now and what some of the skills are that you need to have to be out in the world. And one of them is really flexibility and ability to function with a level of uncertainty and with a lot of change happening, because I think things are changing so fast right now, so that we have to really, be able to embrace that. But that brings me to the next thing, though, about grounding. I mean, how does grounding help somebody? Like when they're anxious, or what are the things that people at work could use grounding for, or certainly if you're coping with emotional things in your life. But so in all those things, can you tell us more what that is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great segue from what you were just talking about, in the sense that we live in a world where there's often chronic overwhelm. We're chronically getting overexposed to stressors, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think something that grounding does is it brings us more into a place where we feel like we have some control. And we can't control the future. We can't go back and change the past, but grounding is something that allows us to tap into the moment and really get our bodies very present, so that we're not in this state of hyper vigilance, and we're not in the state of collapse. There's not this overactivation. There's not this hyper arousal or hypo arousal. We're really looking to get ourselves out of both of those places, to notice if we're in one of those places of hyper arousal, really heightened.
What does that look like?
Yeah,
what would somebody look like?
Right. It's kind of a little bit like this, right?
Yeah.
Like just kind of, a hyper alertness. Maybe the heart is racing, you're breathy, right? Your mind might be racing. Things are fast.
Right.
Don't feel settled.
Okay.
Right. You might be just kind of feel edgy, but not in a good way, not like energized in a good way. And then on the other end of the spectrum, if we get really overactivated, we can really step into this place of collapse or hypo arousal. So we get sleepy, we're spaced out, maybe some confusion, just a sluggishness, maybe we're yawning and don't seem as clear visually, or we're not hearing with the same crispness, like our senses tend to just dull a bit.
Okay, that's good to clarify that.
Yeah, we're not like this or like this. But when we know, right, we're inevitably going to be in these places. And so can we notice that and use certain techniques to get more into the present? And often that's about taking out the uncertainty of what's happening next, or reflecting. It's about doing something in the here and now that's very concrete, like touching something, smelling something, right? You're using your senses to get you really present. And so when we're using our senses, that we're really kind of stepping out of this thinking brain. We're not really in our cortex anymore. We're more just focusing on actually hopefully toning our vagal nerve, but really tuning into a part of our nervous system that is going to regulate us. Something that actually we're born to do. We have this sort of programmed in our system. Parasympathetic part of our nervous system is there to bring us back to this homeostasis.
Okay.
And so we want to deliberately engage that part of our systems if we notice that we're out of balance. And there's a lot of things that we can do to activate that part of our nervous system and get us back into this kind of place of homeostasis or present, or in other words, feeling more grounded. I mean, I think, I don't actually know where the terminology comes from, but I would imagine something around, right, having your feet on the ground and really being able to feel it. If we're spinning about the future and feeling overwhelmed, or if we're ruminating about the past, we're not aware of the sensation of our feet.
Right.
We're not embodied in the moment. We're just in this intellectualized space.
And sometimes when you talk about that, it reminds me of times when, like, for example, when I would do public speaking, I'd be so anxious and I wouldn't really be breathing very much. And I just know I'd be like worried. And in those situations, it's like you don't feel grounded. You don't feel your feet on the ground. You almost feel like you're losing touch with the reality of what's happening.
And it's often because there's too much that our body's trying to take in and manage at one. It's just it's an overwhelm for whatever it is that our systems are capable of managing in the moment. So if we can just do something that's really present, it could be, again, something sensory. It could be just some sort of vagal nerve toning, a humming, or some breath work, right? We're going to step more into our bodies, and that's just going to reduce our overwhelm.
So what is humming? What does that do?
So, right, we know that the vagus nerve, right, it's comes through our face, right, and through this part of our bodies, right, through our neck, right close to the surface, and then all through our intestines into our gut. And so in order to really stimulate this particular part of our vagus nerve, we can do so by humming or singing or additional
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that about that, how you stimulate the vagus nerve. And that you want to stimulate the vagus nerve.
We want to stimulate the vagus nerve, right? The ventral vagal, the front part of our vagus nerve specifically. It's really brings us more into a sense of safety in the moment. If we can stimulate the nerve, then that signals to our brain, right, that there's safety in the moment. Our limbic system is able to calm, right? Our amygdala starts to shut down or calm down a bit. And we get that also just through social engagement too, right? Being in the company of other people that that feels safe,
Right.
that sort of social engagement, if we're able to do so, that can bring more of a sense of safety.
So like if you were at work and you were totally anxious about something, if it would be helpful to go and just really connect with somebody at the
Yes,
job that you feel really comfortable with. That
yes.
would help you just naturally calm down.
Absolutely. Barring, of course, if you have any sort of PTSD around being in someone's proximity, right? Then your body's going to give you the signal, right, that it's not safe. But in other circumstances, that sort of proximity and that eye contact, being within somebody else's energy, is going to help regulate.
How do you have to be a certain closeness to somebody, or is it, 3 feet is okay, 4 feet? What is, I don't know if there's a recommendation.
It's really whatever feels comfortable
Okay.
to you, and really kind of being able to feel that out. I know in different cultures, there's different norms around closeness, physical
Right.
proximity. So, for me, I really like being, there's a certain proximity that I know that I like when I'm around folks, especially in the office. I have a bigger office these days than I did during COVID. So I tend to sit a little further away from folks. And I have the urge to just, like, there's an inner part of me that wants to get a little closer, just to feel a little intimate with folks. So just paying attention to that inner guide that says, oh, I need a little more space, or, oh, I'd like to lean in.
So really, it sounds like you're really also emphasizing paying attention to what's going on inside of you.
That first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
And often it's hard if we're really out of our window and there's too much activation, we're not able to pay attention. But if we can really set that as an intention, right, especially as we're going into a stressful situation, a place where we are more grounded, like, I know I'm heading into work and I have a meeting with my boss today, and I'm going to be really stressed about that. Really tracking your own inner experience throughout the day and right before the meeting, and giving yourself what you might need.
Right. Okay.
Bring yourself back to a place where you feel a little more in control, where your nervous system is, where that parasympathetic nervous system is, we're really stepping on the gas to activate.
Okay. Is there a certain smell that you think is most helpful, or is it essential oils, or what do you recommend about that? Because sometimes you're not going to be able to hum, right? If you're like,
Yeah, right.
can't
That's
be, if you're not in private.
Actually, smell is the sense that is most directly interpreted by the brain. Others have other, like, mediating factors, but the smell gets, I believe it's the end of those pathways that, like, are directly connected into the brain. So that's going to be your fastest bet. And
Interesting.
it matters what you smell, as long as it's a strong scent. Ideally, it's something pleasant, but you just want something that's going to really kind of enliven you and catch your attention, right? Ideally, it's not something that's going to trigger any nausea or any sense that you have any bad associations with. But
yeah,
I know for myself, I'm growing some mint on my back deck, and I just picked off one of those branches the other day and was just smelling the fresh mint leaves, and I could just feel my whole body go.
I'm gonna have to try that.
Mint,
yeah.
And the eucalyptus spearmint mix in the office. That's like a essential oil spray.
Help you to get really in the moment.
In the moment, just slowing down with it, and especially right as you smell it, giving yourself a moment to just attend to your body. It's not a like to check off your to-do list kind of thing.
Yeah. Take time with it.
And it's all a practice of noticing. Notice the smell. Notice what happens in your body as you smell. Right? If you have a poor reaction to a certain smell, try something different. I know in my own personal favorites, lilac, jasmine. Some people like some more earthy tones, some of the frankincense or the thieves, with the essential oils. It's a matter of preference. But the one thing I'll say is that there aren't there aren't any specific things that are have to. It's like the more items that you can turn to, the more skills, grounding skills that you can have to turn to, the better off. And so it's often, I encourage folks to be really experimental with their experiences, try different things, see what worked in the past may not work presently. What didn't work in the past might work presently. I had someone come to a workshop and we tried this breathing and humming exercise, and she showed it. She was reluctant to try it because in the past it really hadn't felt helpful to her. And as she did it again, she didn't realize, but she noticed that her experience around it was very different than when she had tried years ago.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've had that experience with the tapping, the tapping. And at first it made me very uncomfortable. And then I revisited it this year and I loved it.
Yeah.
So you really
staying open.
Yeah. So there's smell and I guess it's all the senses, right?
All
Touch.
the senses. Yeah. Taste, right? Just not necessarily something that you like, but just something that's strong.
Okay.
It's going to draw your attention into the moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's sound. It can be very grounding if you listen to music, especially music that that you're familiar with, that you know the lyrics to, right? It's just like familiar. Have you ever had that experience of just like putting on your playlist of music that you love and your whole body goes, ah.
Yeah, you kind of forget about everything else.
Yeah, you just feel into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like I do Insight Timer where there's a chime that rings in the beginning, and that's what I was thinking of when you were also like you just listen to it and you just really it kind of transforms you.
absolutely. I think I've been to some sound healings. Those are really incredible, right? Just to listen to those sound bowls that will play, and just feeling the vibrations, just being in a place of listening around that.
Yeah.
You have a particular chime that you like to. It could be as simple as, I love those kinds of experiences where you create a sound and then it reverberates.
Yeah.
And I think you can do that through Insight Timer, right? That app.
Yes.
There's a sound and they listen to it. Like they have a gong on there.
They have a gong. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Insight Timer is a good app for anybody that's looking for an app to find. They probably have things about grounding on there, but definitely meditations and all that kind of stuff. So how long does it usually take when you're really anxious about something and you do grounding? You do something, you really smell something or listen, or sometimes I'm thinking touch too, like touching something that's very unusual, brings your attention to it. How long does it take to really calm your nervous system down?
Yeah,
There's no set answer.
It's like a snowflake. Everybody's nervous system is so unique that we just need to give our nervous systems what they need. What I can tell you is that the spike for experiencing anxiety is very short and rapid, right? It
happens fast.
And for our nervous systems to really come back down from that place, it's more of a gentle slope.
Okay.
You really can't expect that it's going to leave suddenly, unless this is something that we practice daily and it's tried and true, and you really kind of hone that response. You can get really fast. I think we can shift that slope of coming down from anxiety to a place of homeostasis the more that we practice these techniques, and the more that we wire our brains to know how to engage that part of our nervous system, that ventral vagal, that parasympathetic. And it just depends on how quickly we get dysregulated and how dysregulated we get. But the more dysregulated, the more time we really want to offer ourselves to really come back. So we really want to do a lot of different techniques and go slowly with it.
So can you just also say, when you say dysregulated, for people who maybe don't know what that means?
Yeah. It's when our emotions are just out of whack.
Out
When
of
they're
whack.
just
Okay.
feeling, when we're really not in a good space, when we're feeling that like hyperactivity or that hyper arousal or that hypo arousal, like when we're not in a good space, right? When we're in a good space, when we're feeling solid, grounded, we can notice ourselves and notice others. We're regulated. Any space out of that is dysregulation.
Okay.
Right? We're
Yeah.
not in a place where we're feeling like we can, where we're emotionally kind of out of whack and we're not able to be present. We're not able to be tuned into ourselves or tuned into
Mm-hmm.
others. We're
Mm-hmm.
really more in a dissociated state.
Okay. Thanks. I think that not everybody knows
Everybody
the
knows this.
term, so it's great. So I can ask you, there's really, I think what's so important, like, and I know you working with clients have the same experiences where people are like feeling like I should be able to be this way, or I should be able to be that way. And like to really, like you said, give people permission to be who they are
Yeah.
and just get to know what they need and what's
Yeah.
going to help them in their life.
Right. And often it's a slow learning process,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And just to allow for that process to unfold at its own pace, right?
Yeah.
We can try to push ourselves to be something that we're not, but
Yeah.
really, can we look at what we're really capable of and just honor our own pacing around
Mm-hmm.
that?
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, I think that we often overestimate, the pace at which others are growing or compare ourselves to others, think others are performing better or they're happier. And I think that that's what pushes a lot of the shoulds, like I should
Mm-hmm.
be like everybody else, but
Mm-hmm.
really, in fact, not everybody else is doing well.
Yeah.
A lot of other people, right? In fact, everybody struggles with dysregulation.
Oh yeah.
Therapists do.
Everyone
Right?
does.
Humans, even in session, it's like so important because we can get dysregulated and need to
Mm-hmm.
really be able to be aware of that and get
Yeah.
grounded ourselves. So
Yeah.
yeah, just offering ourselves that compassion. That,
Compassion. Mm-hmm.
we're you're doing the best you can, or whatever pace that is, that's good enough.
Mm-hmm. So letting go of perfectionism is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing you say, which is where
Yeah,
we started. Like, yeah.
that's hard, right? It's hard to do. And so giving yourself credit, acknowledge when you fall back into that old pattern and of pushing for more or better and comparing yourself, and then just
Yeah.
a reminder, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I'm at. And
Mm-hmm.
just generating that compassion over time. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be linear, right? We're going to fall back into old patterns, and really giving ourselves compassion and grace
Mm-hmm.
for,
Yeah.
including myself. I'm
Yeah.
always,
We're human. That's part of being human, I think.
yeah, it's just the human condition. We learn slowly, we change slowly, and growth is not linear.
Yeah, it's not. You have now I know because I bought some of them. Toolkits. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, right. So I put together a kit of a lot of tools to help folks ground because, as I mentioned before, there's not any one thing that's going to work for any one person. So I wanted to just have a myriad of different things that people could turn to and literally like pull out and use to get more grounded. So it's a tangible box that you can travel with. It's a travel size. You
Oh, I
can
love
keep it
that.
in the car, you can bring it to work, you can,
Yeah.
right? And in it are just different sensory items. So there's something to taste that's just gonna draw you, right? There's something to smell. There's something to a lot of touch involved. I've got some fidget toys that have some strong, just sensory qualities to them. There's a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that changes temperature in there. So it's just
Oh,
bring you
interesting.
into the moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That are going to be really strong sensory experiences. So you can take your time with each one, right? And it's not that you would pick these things out for yourselves in a store, but they're all useful items that are going to be helpful in one way or another. And if you're really dysregulated and feeling like you're not grounded and your emotions are out of whack, you can go and use many of these different items and take your time with each one of them. Figure out what you like and dislike. And I have a nice set of instructions on how to go through. And there's also a deck of cards for folks who want to do more than just be with the items in the boxes, if they want to have other ideas. Because it's certainly not an exhaustive compilation.
Okay. Yeah,
it's like a starter kit.
I love that. And I think that's the idea of taking it with you and being at work. I know for myself, when I know that I have some kind of a tool to be able to handle something, whether it's, tools for how to do public speaking or tools for how to get to from A to B when you're trying to like run or swim or bike. It gives me more confidence. And even just that, knowing that I've got something helps a lot.
Yeah. Even if you don't use it sometimes, right?
Because you start using your brain too. Like you start thinking, oh, I'm going to go use this. And when you start thinking like that, you're moving into your prefrontal cortex again.
Right.
Well, I don't know. It's just fascinating.
Know that you have something that works, right? Like I know that a lot of folks who come in to see me, like they might have a prescription of a benzo, like a Xanax. They don't necessarily use it.
Right.
But they know it's on hand, right?
Yeah.
So this box could act as the same way. But I do have some clients of mine who've bought the box and who've already said, there's one thing in there that I really like that I take with me. And I really like to, it's been really helpful. And just knowing that I have that on hand.
Yeah. And people can always add more stuff as they go to it, which is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun. That's the nice thing, is it's really fun. It's colorful. It's great for kids, right? It's very engaging. There's some putty, right? Like a lot of textures and
I'm glad you mentioned the kids thing, because a lot of times with my clients, I'll be teaching them, some kind of a tool, and I'll say, and you can even do this with your kids, because your kids,
actually,
why not teach your kids young, right? To learn how to reduce stress. It's amazing, opportunity for kids.
Yeah. And it's something that you could do with your kids.
And with your kids.
Together, yeah.
It's very bonding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On emotional well-being together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to share kid, like I really value this, right? You show them this is something that's important that I want to offer to you as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Parents value this.
So if you could just leave people with like the one most important message about this, about being human, about grounding, or whatever it is, what would you, I'm sure there's many messages, but one thing you want us to think about.
I think I just would say, that it is worthwhile for you to really regulate, to not regulate, but to track yourself, to bring awareness to yourself, because you actually, there's so many possibilities of ways to transform how we are in our bodies. So if we could just heighten our sense of awareness and just give ourselves more opportunity to pay attention to ourselves.
That's a good message.
So small and huge at the same time. We're so often just attending to other people.
Yeah, that's true. Focus on ourselves.
Just for a split moment. And how am I doing in this moment? What's going on in my body? Just integrating that in your everyday being. Doesn't have to be a meditative practice. It could be
anything about focusing on yourself, and because once you in order to know what steps to take, you have to know where you are. It gives you,
that's a starting point.
Sometimes just realizing I'm not breathing makes you breathe.
It's not just a starting point, it's a starting point, and it can take you through a whole process that's going to be helpful,
right,
like just noticing
in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
So you have these grounding kits. You also do, like, we are both EMDR therapists, but you do more intensives. Can you just say a little bit about that for people
Yes.
if they're interested? And
Yes, absolutely. And also the grounding kits, if folks are interested in them, I have them on Becoming You by Sharon on Etsy. You can also contact me directly at Dr. Sharon Clayman at gmail.com for some more information about that. And the intensive works that I'm doing, it's exciting. It's a way of helping people get better faster. It's a way of inviting people to do EMDR, but in a way that is short term with long segments. So we're identifying right from the get go what somebody wants to work on, at what pace and capacity they can work, and then moving straight towards those as quickly as we can, so that people can experience relief faster. After 20 years of this practice, really seeing people in therapy for year upon year upon year because of just the complexity and hearing people want to get better faster and don't want to be in therapy for years. I just really have opened the doors in my practice to this model where we can make it very it's very, how should I say, individualized to the person, and in a matter of a week we can make some great strides. And so I'll have people in for sessions that may last 3 or 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
And we might do that a few days during the week, or it might be spaced out over a few weeks, just depending on how much time somebody really needs to integrate after each session. But it's very customized for folks who have the time and are ready for that type of more intensive therapy. People walk out feeling like there's been a change.
Amazing change, right? I think that's what I love about EMDR is how the change happens. It's just, you can almost see it.
Yes.
It's just amazing.
So instead of being over the course of 3 or 4 sessions or 5 sessions that you're working on something, we're fitting it all in. Someone's walking in with something and they're walking out without it.
Yeah, it's wild.
Amazing.
I love that.
So rewarding for me.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll put the information how to contact you in the links to the self-worth talk, so people can reach out to you, can get those grounding kits, or reach out to you about doing some intensives with you. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
My pleasure. I always like having another therapist to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.